60 History, Real American History. Votes for Women and the Night of Terror. Inside the District of Columbia Jail, 33 women suffragists were manhandled and abused. These events are known as the Night of Terror. These women activists had patiently and nonviolently stood outside the White House to protest the lack of voting rights for women. The question these women posed was how long? How long must we wait for liberty? The denial of voting rights for women began a very long time ago. In ancient Egypt, there was one pharaoh, and for everyone else, oppression. There was no vote in ancient Rome. There was killing and conquering, and the making of slaves from every race. Mohammedans, no voting there either. Slavers and oppressors everywhere. The medieval nobles and royals, no better. They took everything they could from their subjects. There wasn't any voting. There was servitude and indentured labor without pay. But slowly, the Age of Enlightenment arose. New Yorkers finally pulled together to take the king off his pedestal. The United States of America was founded on the theories of the Age of Enlightenment. Liberty and freedom and equality, these became ideals that men might get behind and fight for. And women too. The U.S., like every other kingdom, clan, and fiefdom in history, had a founding compromise of oppression. Slavery in the United States would end, and black men would vote. But women, how long must they wait? In 1852, Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin. Her book raised the nation's consciousness about slavery. It was the best-selling novel of the century. Frederick Douglass was a noted supporter of equality. He was also a vocal supporter of women's suffrage and a delegate to the Women's Rights Convention. Lucretia Mott is the first of the three famous founders of the suffrage movement in the U.S. She believed in human equality and argued for blacks as well as women. She organized the Women's Rights Convention of 1848. Raised as a Quaker, in meetings she was encouraged to speak up. Outside of those meetings, few women spoke in public, and they were not allowed into colleges. Lucretia Mott then founded one of the first co-ed colleges in the country, Swarthmore College in Philadelphia. Elizabeth Cady Stanton is another foundational figure of the women's suffrage movement. She wrote the Declaration of Sentiments for the convention. The sentiments of the convention included votes for women, and also that women should be protected from their husbands' debts. The third founder was Susan B. Anthony. She was an organizer and a go-getter. Early in her career, she would walk from town to town spreading the message of women, even in the snow of upstate New York. She had tremendous energy and discipline. This is the statue of those three founders. This statue is displayed in the rotunda under the dome of the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Voting rights would come, first for blacks and only later for women. Wheels were turning. Time rolled on. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. Women were coming together. women were entering the professional world. New leaders arose. Alice Paul and Lucy Burns began the National Women's Party and started the Silent Sentinels. These were the new generation of activists. The Sentinels stood watch outside the White House 6 days a week for 2.5 years. Alice Paul organized the first protest march ever on Pennsylvania Avenue. This is her plan and shows that Ms. Inez Milholland would lead the procession astride a white horse. (1913). Procession had floats and flags. It had bands and banners. It was festive. There was such a tremendous turnout that it became hard for the marchers to move forward. Here you see the overflow crowd pushing into the procession's path. Some in the crowd began to heckle the women. Obscenities were shouted. Parade slowed. It is difficult to see amongst all these people in such a huge crowd as this, but here at the head of the parade is Miss Milholland on her white horse. This is the lead float with the demand for a constitutional amendment in bold letters. In the car here is Alice Paul, trying to somehow hold the crowd back. Crush was nearly a panic. Some of the women reported that they felt hot tobacco juice land on their skin. A call for help went out to the Army just across the Potomac River in Arlington, Virginia. The 15th U.S. Cavalry, Company C, cleared the blockage. But not before the march had come to a halt. "29 people were injured, many of them women. The stoppage lasted 2 hours. Now the closing pageant was about to start. Note the grandstand set up for Woodrow Wilson's first inauguration the following day, March 4th, 1913. Soon Lady Liberty stepped out victorious. A crowd of supporters cheered. Children, after nearly being crushed, happily raised their balloons. The headline in the National Women's Party newspaper read, "Parade struggles to victory despite disgraceful scenes." More victories were coming for women. This is the first woman to serve in Congress, Jeannette Rankin. She was elected 4 years before the 19th Amendment was even ratified. As seen in this map, individual states out west had already approved voting for women by 1916. Congresswoman Jeannette Rankin was from Montana. The NWP continued to publicly speak out. And then the arrests at the White House increased. At one big demonstration, 33 women were arrested. Police hauled away prisoners wearing furs and fancy hats. Starting that day, the ladies would experience the events now known as the Night of Terror. This is the DC jail and workhouse. The warden of the jail had ordered the guards to, quote, "teach these women a lesson." They handcuffed Lucy Stone to the bars of her cell and left her standing there all night. Outspoken Alice Paul was sent to solitary for 2 weeks of bread and water. she went on a hunger strike. Others joined in. They were force-fed. Each of the hunger strikers had a tube forced up their nose, then raw eggs and milk were pushed into their stomachs. It made them vomit. When finally released, some of the women were so weak from hunger they needed help walking. One of the 33 women, while in jail, died of a heart attack and denial of medical care. How long must women wait? There has never been, either in the laws of nature, or the Hammurabi Code, or even in the rules of the House of Tudor, nowhere was there ever any mention of a popular vote. These are three leaders who moved the history of U.S. women in a new direction: equal rights. Lucretia Mott started the Philadelphia Female Anti-Slavery Society in 1833. Elizabeth Cady Stanton wrote the Declaration of Sentiments. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal. And Susan B. Anthony, who made headlines for being arrested, jailed, tried, and convicted. Her crime was being a woman while voting. This is 101 years after the 19th Amendment. This is the Vice President of the United States of America. This is Kamala Harris. How long the wait has been.